reflecting on 2021 and like everything, what I was doing in my business, my personal life and all that. When I reflected, I'm like, the places I've gotten the most results are the ones that I've been consistent with. And it sounds obvious, right? But it's just like, so all I got to do is be consistent with something and I'm going to be successful.
Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the High Performance Management Podcast with your host, myself, Corey Davies. And for this episode, we've got Jeremy here from Ithaka Media. Now he does cinematography, videography for small to medium businesses. And in this episode, we talk about how he started his business, what were the first hurdles he had to overcome, the skills he had to learn to be the person he is now. We also go over the importance of mentors, having the right information and circle around you. Also, then we dive pretty deep into fitness, which is both a hobby for myself and for Jeremy, and its importance and impact in our own lives and achieving our version of success. So I hope you get something out of this episode, and if you do, make sure you give it a share and a follow. Thanks. Management podcast. I've got Jeremy here from Ithaka Media, a video specialist for small to medium businesses in content creation and marketing. And welcome. This is the first one. See how we go.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey. I'm pretty honored to be considered the candidate for your first. So that's it's good to be here,
mate. Anytime. Yeah. So me and Jeremy have known each other for a little while now, just through both had the same mentor actually, which is funny. And yeah, again, thanks for coming on as well for the first episode and dealing with my newness.
No. I'm sure it's going to be good. I'm excited, but we've got a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll get straight into it. So Ithaka, how did we get to that name for your business?
Yeah, sure thing. So the way I came to Ithaka, there's a lot of reasons for it. So just to back up a bit, I'm sure a lot of people, and I'm always curious. I always ask people if you have a brand or a business, especially if they've created it, how do they come up with the name? I always think there's something interesting about that. And I hear stories of people, spending months and they're making lists of, thousands of names and, they just can't quite get it. I was there too. So I was making a list of, a lot of different names and like, oh, gee, I want it to be about, I kind of wanted to, explain what it is. And I want it to be meaningful to me. And I think the last point, as far as having it being meaningful, that was the critical factor for me, something that had meaning to me. So when I arrived in Ithaka, when I had that there, I was like, oh, that's it. That's the name. And I'll tell you why that's the name, because I've got a Greek heritage. So on my mum's side, she's half Greek, so that makes me a quarter Greek. But
yeah,
I identify very heavily with my Greek heritage. I'm currently learning how to speak Greek, very poorly, I might add, but I'm still learning. But getting there. So I've got strong roots to my Greek heritage, and of course, Ithaca is a Greek island, so it's on the western side of Greece. It's a small island. Just off Kefalonia, for people who know where that is.
Cool.
And I'm yet to go there, but it's a beautiful island. But the other reason that I chose that name, and that again, this is probably the more important reason, is because what I do as a business and what's important to me from a life point of view is as a storyteller. So I love storytelling, and I do that through video. So the primary way I do that anyway. And Ithaca, it's the home island of Odysseus from the Odyssey, and the Odyssey is my favorite story of all time. And I'm sure we might chat a bit more about that, Corey. But that's why I chose that. And then another, again, I hope I'm not taking too long to answer this question, but even at a deeper level, like for those who are familiar with the story of the Odyssey, it's about a warrior returning home from the Trojan War, that being Odysseus, and his home is Ithaca. So there's that extra element of, it's about, I guess, that feeling of home, that feeling of meaning and that feeling of that journey through life. And that journey for Odysseus took many years. It took up the better part of his life, but it wasn't just about the arrival there, it was about the journey along the way. So I always think of that whenever I'm talking about Ithaka and including it in my business as well.
That's beautifully said, and I resonate with that very deeply. Myself, I'm Italian. I always still say I'm half Italian, but when you actually think of the maths, you're right. Like, it is only a quarter.
Yeah. I'm just as much Italian as you, man, as well. So I'm a quarter Italian too.
That's it. Rolled all up in one. But yeah, that's super cool. And you're dead right. Like, specifically like in the Greeks, that's where kind of the type of storytelling we got now in like modern day, videography and movies and cinema essentially came from the Athenians. So that's an amazing story, man. Like, I can tell you really like thought it out, and it's almost like its own story in itself, like how you come up with it. That's awesome.
It's actually funny, to be honest. It's one of those things that and I'm not saying in retrospect I've kind of carved out the meaning, but it's the more I get questioned about it and the more I question it myself, there was almost like an intrinsic drive to choose that name. Like, it was obvious to me, because I was like, in a way, yeah, I'm not so heavy on that all the time, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like, I think it's like, as I've come to an understanding, there was just something inside me that had to choose that name, and very much happy that I did.
Yeah, it's always funny. You can trace the dots backwards like perfectly. You're like, oh, this exact thing happened for me to get here. But then looking forward, you're like, I have no clue what the fuck I'm doing. I agree, man. That's super cool. Same with like myself. The further I get into, like even new stuff, biotech, anti-aging, like it. Like, I can see how this logo and name I came up with 2.5 years ago is like connecting to this like new version of myself as well as I grow and things like that. And same with yourself. I'm not sure where you're going with in the future, if you ever move away from small medium enterprises, and maybe you sound like you're a lover of stories and things like that. If you move into that type of stuff, which I think you've mentioned, feature film on the way, that you're looking at producing and things like that, like it's you never really know. I guess that's where it's like, great, you got to be you got to start to be great. You can't be great to start. It's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Spot on.
Yeah. And so I suppose let's talk about, like, you're quite young and you own, a business, and you could say you're self-employed, right? Like, you're not really relying on any other source of income, which is an amazing accomplishment. Because it's bloody hard. Most businesses fail in the first 2 years. And then I think it's like 90-something% fail within 10 years. So like the fact you're going
something like that.
Like, how long has it been running up now?
Well, so I just ticked over this month in February. It's been 4 years
congrats.
since I first started. So I don't, again, I've not looked at those statistics very closely, but you're right. Like, I think there's one around the 5-year mark. I think if you get to 5 years, like, I think 80% drop off there. So not at that 5-year mark yet, but still going strong. So
impending doom.
The doomsday clock is ticking.
You're going to be on the corner preaching, the year's coming.
No, I hope not. But so it's just ticked over to 4. I hadn't really thought about it yet. It was in February of 2018 that we opened our doors.
That's awesome. And like, this is the bits I love. Like if we go back to the hero's journey, what you were just referring to, even with the start of your name, like, what was that like looking like? What were you doing? What was your life looking like Jeremy in 2017 or 2016? Like, is this something you've kind of always wanted? Like, where did that like desire to be not only self-employed but like create something and impact lives, like, where did that come from?
Yeah, no, it's good question, Corey, because like I suppose I differ from a lot of people who do start up businesses. I guess it was for a different reason. And so, I mean, we touched on it just before, but my lifelong journey is around filmmaking, and I've always known that from a very young age. And to answer your question, like around 2017, so I was coming to the end of my my university studies in film and television. So Yeah, 2017 was my final year, and I remember like it would have been like probably about midway through, perhaps a little earlier, that my old man was sort of tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, you should start thinking about what it is you're going to do when you leave. Like, are you thinking of, I guess finding a job in production or whatever?" Like he knew very,
Good question. Yeah.
very, yeah, he knew
Yeah.
very well like what I wanted long term, but you'd have to be practical in the short term as well.
Yeah. 100%.
And I'm in that again, like I'm 2017. I'm like, no, that's all right. I'll figure it out when I leave. And he was
That's
saying
it.
like,
When I'm ready.
a big, yeah, that's right. Like I was just so focused on, there's millions of projects you're doing and you're focusing on that. But one thing he did suggest was like, hey, if if you're perhaps thinking of, starting up something yourself, like whether that be a business or some kind of freelancing venture, it might be worth, while you're still at university, doing some units around, around business and business related units. And I was like, it's all right. I've got enough units. I'm doing, film production and stuff like that, all that kind of fun stuff. And I wish I'd listened to my dad. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, so like, would you say that maybe even the conception of that was to do with that just one simple question that your dad had? Or is
no, would that,
kind of, have
yeah,
you always been like that way inclined? Like, did you do things when you were younger that were maybe like against the grain? Because even so, like starting a business is still very, like you've got to be a certain type of person. Maybe not even, maybe the journey you got to brought you to that, but like it's not everyone does it. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So like there's still that, like what was like the initial mindset like building towards that?
yeah, if I'm being honest, ignorance. Like
Yeah.
when I first, like honest to God, like, so yeah,
Yeah, I'll start a
like
business, make $1
yeah,
million.
no, it's like that. Like, and I didn't have those sorts of conceptions, but it was a case of like, why not? Like I was, yeah, like I literally was 3 months out of uni, and that kind of summer over like January, like is, when the reality of like, oh well, you're not studying anymore. What the hell are you going to do with yourself? Like
Yeah.
that's when that set in. And I was like, I've got a certain amount of gear, and like I guess to start, producing videos for businesses and stuff, I need a couple of more extra things. And I was like, why not do it? And
Yeah.
like I honestly like stumbled into it. I didn't have any kind of grand ideas of building an empire or things like that. But for me, it was a way to commercialize the talents I did have in video making and video
Yeah.
production, while still having that long-term vision of film directing, like using that as a pathway to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah, like you're right. Like it's not 100% realistic to have just this massive, grandiose, large, 10, 15-year plan. You're right. You got to have those steps in between, like how you're going to get there. But sometimes you've got a strong enough why, the how kind of works itself out. And it does seem like that's what's happened. Like you said,
Yeah,
you almost stumbled into it. It's like the journey that like a initial seed you planted about film design kind of guided your perceptions on what you'd like to do based on like that end goal, which I think is an important lesson anyway. Like I've had that myself. Like I still don't like, I know I want to change the medical system, and same thing as you want to be like a film director and like really make some like beautiful artwork. And same with me, like I just want to change how things are done. They're a bit barbaric now, and I don't know how that's going to happen, but it's definitely dictating what I do, because I'm like consciously aware of what it is that end goal is. And yeah, no, that's super cool, man. How it's like I can tell. Maybe I'm wrong. Forgive me, but
no,
it
like
seems as though it's like kind of guided you somewhat, having that long term vision.
absolutely. And I had, like, the way you phrased it, I never really thought of it that way, but I am a big believer in, having a good understanding of your why and where
Yeah,
you're going, like having some kind of a vision. And I've been doing a lot of work around that, more in more recent times.
yeah,
But I guess at an early stage, that even if it was, I guess, not as well defined, there was that little inkling of something
yeah.
that was driving me forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important for like anyone that might be listening. Even if you don't 100% know what you want to do, if you've got some type of idea, it's that the presence of that idea is what creates the momentum, So I think, that's, if you don't know how to do something, it doesn't necessarily matter, does it? Because you'll start to see everything through that lens of, oh, that's kind of the goal I kind of like this. Like, I guess I'm all right at that. And then you get more confidence, right? That's awesome. And thanks for sharing. And I suppose, like, if we were to go to it, what was that first client like? Because I know, like, I've done a few businesses now, and like, I remember trying to like sell something for the first time of my services. Like, what do I even charge? Like, what am I worth? Like, that's the scariest part for me. And then, like, even finding and then going through all those like meltdown moments of like, is this even good enough? The imposter syndrome and things like that. So, like, what was that like first client like? So you kind of stumbled into it, you had the gear, and then you're like, oh, I guess I could help some small medium businesses and film some stuff for it. Like, what was that like first thing? You like registered your name, Ithaka. Then, like, what was that next bit?
Yeah, so I like a lot of the front ends, and this more of a reflection of my personality type. Like, did a lot of planning around like what I was actually going to do, and I was, I built myself a little crappy website, and put my first logo together. Like, I did spend probably a disproportionate amount of time doing that.
That's
like
always it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Like, and I don't know if it was a sense of like, if I can, because I was fairly good at that stuff. Like, that's like, I guess, the creative part of me. I'm good at that. Maybe I was,
Almost a
if
form
I'm
of
thinking back,
procrastination.
yeah, in a way, right? Like, because I guess the hard work and the part that I've had to learn is more that business acumen of, how do you get business? How do you sell to people? Like, how do you price it? All that kind of stuff, which I've had to learn along the way. But I won't count my first client because my first client was my dad. So for his business.
But that works, like,
yeah. But
you
I'll
need to
tell
do
you a
your
little
free
story.
things. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't free, by the way. He paid me. So it was a business transaction. But I won't count it anyway because he he did it for me. Like, and I understand that entirely. But
that's great. Good dad.
But where it led to, my dad, this is one of the best, I always look at sort of milestones. This was a big milestone for the business. My dad, he introduced me to the guy who had built his website. I think at the time it probably would have been maybe the year before, like, so it's quite recent. And so obviously he was in, the marketing space, so very good person to be speaking to, as far as video is concerned. And basically I went to him and I said, hey, look, I'm just looking to build my portfolio. Can I make you a video for you guys don't have a video. Can I make a video for you guys? Like, just a simple website video, just for, a bit of portfolio building and, help you guys out. And he said, yeah, you bet. And
yes,
I remember, it was a win. And
that's
then
awesome.
when I showed him the video, he was like, oh, gee, okay. And I was like, what's wrong? And he said, nothing. It's just, it was
like
better than I thought it was going to be. It was like, well, when you said free, I thought, oh, it might be pretty average, but this is like really good.
Over deliver. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And that guy, and I still, work with this guy today. Very, I'm very grateful to have met him and to continue work with him. He got me my first two clients. So he referred me to two of his clients who needed some video, and that was within like a month of doing that one for him. So
you got this momentum, this like confidence in your ability to do it, and then you're almost building the framework. Like, just before we started this like podcast now, like, we were just saying how you've just got to, you can kind of plan, but then when you start, that's like you just got to reverse engineer what you're doing. So yeah, that's cool, man. And so the first guy, he was, you could say you almost like, would you say you kind of like modeled him as a bit, because, like, he's in the marketing space. Did you have a look at like what type of stuff did he do?
I wouldn't say I modeled him, only because I guess we're different businesses, but I modeled him in the sense of like other things, like how he communicates with clients, how he delivers his services. He like how he communicates with his team members and other people around him. A lot of good, a lot of things I've learned from him, and from time to time I still go to him for advice. I'm very
Yeah.
I definitely see him as a leader and a mentor in the space. So
Yeah. That's like amazing. And that's like probably the biggest thing I can relate to as well, is like, just look at, someone who's kind of doing, like, they might not be exactly the same, but they're doing something that you're not, and learning from it, putting that ego aside, and just like learning what you can. And you mentioned a few things there about like just business in general, like, how you talk to customers, how you deliver, and like all those type of things. It's not really something you can plan for, right? Until you start diving into it head first and finding all these new roadblocks and doors you've got to go through and figure out how to navigate around. So yeah, that's awesome,
that's
man.
right. It comes from experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so you got your first two clients, and then I imagine you'd move into more of like a system building phase where you're like, all right, well, I've had 3 clients. Like, what did you do to get more from there? Is it just word of mouth? Like, did you start building, marketing for yourself?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you a bit about that. So like in the early stages, I was literally just trying anything, and obviously being early, like it was like capital was low. So like I was doing things that were more time intensive but cheap. So one thing I did, and this absolutely terrified me, like, well, 2 things I should say, but more like a cold outreach. So I did like cold calling and door knocking and things like that. Yeah. But although I don't see them as a particularly good form of marketing necessarily, I don't regret doing it because I learned a lot from doing it. And in fact, the cold calling led me on to, and this is the way I currently have grown my business, led me on to networking and like referral based marketing, and that's been the bedrock of how I've grown my business.
Amazing. And you're right, like these, like you mentioned, it was very terrifying for you. There's a massive, like, would you say like that was also one of those like kind of moments so you look back on as well, like, which kind of built you to who you are now? Because I'd imagine, like, I've like my background sales, like I remember my first going into a business that you have no idea about, like you're like, they don't even know who I am, like what am I even doing? And then you're kind of putting yourself out, you're being vulnerable. Like I can imagine that would really shape your confidence as well now approaching new clients. Like what was kind of that, what do you think like the biggest thing you learned from that was?
Yeah, I think it is that, I guess, just that perseverance of, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because, I think, like, because granted, like if we're sort of talking more the door knocking side of things, like I did it a couple of times because like where I was in Joondalup at the time. So there was a lot of businesses around, and I would, plan out, I'll do this many today and next week I'll do that many, whatever. I think the first time, because it was a bit of a walk. I was working out of my dad's office. He allowed me to have a little desk, like work desk there. It was a bit of a walk from that to where I was going to. And I remember the first time I walked and I got to the first place and I was like, no, I'm not doing it today. I'm walking back. I literally walked back. And my dad's like, oh, that was quick. I'm like, no, I didn't do it. Well, I'm not going to do it today.
I closed him. I walked in and they just said yes.
Yeah. So like it did take me a bit of time to build up the courage, but look, at the end of the day, like once you actually get into it, it's not so bad. Like you just have to. I guess the biggest thing I learned is like once you get momentum, it's not so hard.
Yeah, that is a massive thing, momentum, isn't it? You just got to start rolling it, and it might be like things stopping it, but you just got to get that strength and push over.
Yeah, and just like not overthinking it. Like I try and do that with a lot of things. Like I try and, like, in my head, just like zoom out to like, to 100 years and like thinking like, is this little like moment gonna, like, it's not gonna kill me. Like it's just a little tiny insignificant thing. I'm just doing this one thing, and if I can look at it that way, it's not so hard.
That's an interesting point you make, because myself being like a mindset coach, that's an amazing tool, and obviously we got the same mentor and we're doing the same stuff, so
I imagine that's why we're probably,
there's a bit of influence there, but also you do have to have a sort of introspective, like self-awareness to yourself to be able to do that as well. Instead of just blindly going through life and reacting. Where would you say that type of mindset comes from? Because that's again, I've spoken even before this podcast, like I kind of always interview people just randomly because I'm curious, how people, have achieved things in life, and because I want to get, somewhere as well in the future, as we discuss. Like when you when do you think you started, being more self-aware of thoughts, and like instead of just being like, oh, I feel anxious, I'm not going to do it, like you started realizing that, like I imagine maybe from even the books you've read, because you're quite a reader in different literature, like where do you think that came from? Even family? I don't know.
It's a good question. I don't have a very interesting answer for that, unfortunately, but I think it's been I couldn't say it's one thing. I think it's an accumulation of more than anything the people I'm surrounded by.
Amazing.
Less so the things maybe it is the things I read, who knows. Like I've definitely had an interest in philosophy for a long time, and certain classical literature and things like that, but I think in part that is, but 100% it's the people I've surrounded myself with, and that includes my family members, close friends, but I think in my business career, I've been very fortunate to cross paths with some very influential in a good way, of course, around that kind of framework of how you think and your mindset and things like that. And of course, like you said, we share a mentor, and that's been a big part of how I think and how I approach things. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. You said what you said was bang on, and you probably hear a lot of people talk about it. Who you surround yourself with, like, really does matter. Like it's something I've changed several. You got to keep reaching vertical, as Grant Cardone says, like consistently, because you can reach sideways and but you kind of remain the same. So like constantly going for people who are just doing things different, and I think you're probably similar to me, where you can speak to someone and you're just like, oh, this guy's got a twang about him, like, well, what do they do? They're doing something different, and you kind of just probe them a bit, and like just that influence. And you mentioned philosophy a bit there in classical literature. Like I know from my own readings, like Marcus Aurelius, like Stoicism, and that's very embedded in Greek philosophy and things like that. What type of things have you taken? It doesn't have to be business, but even like personally, have you learned from the great philosophers, like, that you employ yourself?
Oh, gee, I think in a general sense, because there's so many schools of thought, I think more than anything is just to just to be critical, and examine things and be questioning of things. I think like if there's anything, and again, like we'd probably need 10 podcast episodes to talk about all the different schools of thought and things like that. But no, I think that's an important feature of the philosophy I've surrounded myself. Like if we're sort of limiting ourselves to, I guess, the like classical Greek philosophers. Yeah,
that's awesome. And then obviously now it's been 4 years in February. What's the next steps? We've had this like growth where you've had to overcome all these new anxieties and new roadblocks, doing your first cold calls, and then you've kind of built up a reputation. You said you got into your networking and referral based marketing. What's your next step? Like, if what's are you trying to get to a certain level of customer base? So you're looking to employ people. What's that, that next few years going to look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, I guess the next stage or the iteration of my life is that transition into the filmmaking realm, and I suppose what that means for Ithaka Media as it currently is to bring on team, really. So to bring on team that can allow it to function in a way that my input is very limited, so that I can focus on the filmmaking endeavors. That's really all it comes down to. And obviously there's a lot of steps involved in that, but like on a broad level, that's where things are heading now.
Yeah, right. Awesome. And that's probably going to be a whole nother, you look back on this moment, that you know, employing someone, maybe having to fire someone later. These are all parts along that journey which are going to be amazing. And in terms of your filmmaking, what's your like idea about your first feature film you would think you'd make? You have any idea? Like
I can't share that. I'm writing the script as
ooh,
we speak.
secret. That's all right, but that's cool. I love how it's now connecting to that long-term vision of making films. And when you say making films, is that like, how big is that going to look? Is that going to go to like a commercial level? Would you be like hopefully having them on Netflix and whatever the future of film industry?
Yeah, like it's a good question. Like I do want to have I do want it to be commercial because I believe it can be, for one thing, and but not at the expense of any kind of like creative or artistic integrity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am very much married to the concept of a cinema, and by that I mean, like, in the traditional sense of you're in a in a dark room and you watch it, and the size isn't necessarily important. So although I'd be very glad to have my films on streaming platforms like Netflix and Stan and so on, what would be special to me would be to have it shown to people in cinemas.
Yeah, like the traditional route. It's almost like a romantic ness about it, having it in the cinemas. Because it's almost like we're devoid of that now.
No, it is, but like I guess from a purist point of view, because even like, I mean, intuitively, like if I would ask you, if you were to compare the experience of watching at home on a television, even if you can, mimic the conditions, watching in a cinema, it's just, you can't compare it. It's
a whole different energy,
different experience. Yeah,
totally. I completely agree. That's awesome, man. Thanks so much for sharing that journey and where you're going, and little tidbits about mindset and things like that. I think we are coming up to probably near the end part. That's pretty much what I'm hoping to get out of doing these podcasts, is just getting some key like learning aspects for myself, because I'm selfish, but also like anyone that would be listening. It's just about asking the right questions to get the right answers. And I suppose, like, before we finish off, like what are you reading currently? I know you're a reader. Like what's something you're into at the moment?
Yeah, no, good question. I usually will be reading like a couple of things on the go. One or two might be on audio, and then one or two might be physical book. I don't know what you can call it. Is that the word for it? Physical book, I suppose. Traditional book. So as far as I'll start with the audio
NFT book.
God, no, I wouldn't be reading that. But of two audiobooks I'm following. One is it's called Directing Actors. And so that's obviously filmmaking related. I'm like, a big focus for me this year is delving more into how I can be a better director in the acting realm. Like, so I think I've learned to a point that I guess the technician side of things from directing, but I've got so far to go with how to communicate with actors and learn that. So that's a really great book. I'm nearly finished that. I'm not rereading, I guess re-listening to an audiobook, and a couple of years back I read War and Peace, so I've got an audiobook of that, so I'm just listening to that. I'm also currently reading not that this will take very long, but King Lear, so that's obviously a play, so different format. And I'm also rereading The Republic, just been going over Plato's works again.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. That's I love how you just filling your mind and constantly trying to be better in every aspect, not just things that are you're interested in, but things that need to be done so you can be the best version of yourself. That's awesome. No, awesome, mate. I think that's pretty much it. I suppose like what's if there's one thing you'd say to like your younger self that would probably get you closer to where you're wanting to go at a faster rate, what would that be?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd probably say it'd come down to time. And what I mean by that is just focusing and being aware of where you're spending your time, and if it's conducive and aligned with what you're trying to achieve. I think I can't really say more than that. Like if you just because time is the most precious thing we have. Like you're never going to get it back.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure like this, and I'm sure probably your audience has some kind of awareness of this. But yeah, just being really careful with how you spend your time.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree more. And it's who you spend your time with as well, what you're reading, what you're eating. It all contributes to yourself. So yeah.
We didn't even get to talk about the gym as well. That's
Oh
another
yeah,
episode.
we definitely didn't.
We've got time. I don't know if we've got time, but we can definitely dive
yeah,
in.
I've got time.
We can dive into that if you want.
I think I kind of framed it to end, but we can just keep it going.
I don't mind. I hope I'm not hijacking your episode, but
no, that's cool. That's fine. I was more concerned with your timing of finishing it around 10. So if you got time, man, I'd love to dive into
time.
it.
I'm enjoying this chat.
Yeah,
we'll
perfect.
We'll go on. So yeah, sorry,
Awesome.
You go ahead.
No, you're so right. Like I think I was just enjoying like that that business side of yourself and the artistic nature and creative side of you like more, and because my side's all the fitness and that, so it's cool. I love to hear like other perspectives, but yeah, I agree. Like obviously you and I, we love the gym. You're currently competing. I've competed in bodybuilding and fitness. I reckon that's also a major part of mindset, right? Like that's my whole ethos here at High Performance Management is mind body connection. It's one of the most important things of my life was being the gym, reinforcing great habits, discipline, cognitive enhancement just from going to the gym. And then almost the introduction to self-help was through the gym for me. So watching like I don't know, like Ronnie Coleman, like lightweight baby on YouTube. And then you're seeing like, CEO videos of like waking up at 5 a.m, going to the gym, and just like that was the earliest stage for me in my growth in business and things like that. Because I started going at like 15. So yeah, tell us about your fitness journey. How has fitness impacted your not only business, but personal and family relationships? How big of an impact is that for you?
Yeah, no, it's a real good question. And it's actually, that's why I'm kind of surprised I didn't mention it before when we were sort of going through the other things, but that discipline angle was certainly a big part of it. And even more recently, like you said, like this is the first time I'm competing. And this last year I've, not that I've always been pretty, disciplined with how I'm training, but more so with the eating side of things, like the dieting and whatnot. That's completely new to me. But when I was reflecting on 2021 and like everything, what I was doing in my business, my personal life and all that, when I reflected, I'm like, the places I've gotten the most results are the ones that I've been consistent with. And it sounds obvious, right? But it's just like, so all I got to do is be consistent with something and I'm going to be successful.
But that consistency requires the discipline, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. So like once I knew that, I'm like, well, I can apply this to anything. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like I'm just going to be, and obviously, there's a finite amount of time. So like I'm still in that lead up to the competition. So my gym and fitness is taking up a lot of time, and it has to just to keep on track with everything. But
yeah,
once that's done, I can move that time into another area of my life, and I know, if I'm consistent, I'm disciplined with it, I can get great results.
Yeah. And like that's a good point. You mentioned you can transfer it to other areas. That's literally like one of my key components of, I do mindset coaching, but I'd give them the fitness workout program customized to whatever they're doing, is because of that. If you see like like you mentioned being consistent. I think personally, the one of the reasons consistency works well in the gym is because you can kind of see it easier. You can feel it more measurably. Whereas like there's like the law of diminishing returns where you start a new skill and you think it's going to go linearly, but realistically, and if you look back as well, it's actually an exponential graph. So that law of diminishing returns is actually between what you expect it to be doing and then the come up before you see actual results. And you're right, like that's where discipline comes in, because it's like if you're aware that if you're just consistent enough, it will happen. And like I think with the gym, you can go up in weights. Like it might be 2.5 kilos every week or every 2 weeks, or maybe your rest time is decreased by 5 seconds or 3.5 seconds. But it's like you can seriously see it with your own eyes. Whereas something like, I don't know, what's the skill you've done that's kind of not really shown immediate results, but like after 6 months to a year, you're like, oh, I'm actually better at it. You know, what's something for you that you've gone through?
Oh, like the first thing that jumps into my mind would be something like, I guess, yeah, like public speaking or presenting and things like that. Like that's something I've, in the business world, I've been lucky enough to be able to like regularly practice. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I'm actually getting a lot better at this. Like I wasn't so great at it. Most people aren't, but I wasn't so great at it in high school. But it's been something I've been able to develop, and I think develop with some level of acumen.
Yeah, you're not that good, mate. I'm just...
Calm down. Put me back in my place. Jesus.
No, you're definitely you're a great speaker, 100%. And maybe touch on that. Like there's something here in Perth or in Australia really called Business Networking International. And what's your position on that? It's a company. Maybe talk about that and public speaking and your role in that as well, because that's probably a massive thing. Like that's terrifying. You're like, especially being like a younger type of person going into these. That's mainly CEOs, directors who have had companies for like 20, 30 years. It is scary, right? Like I remember when I went in, I was you're going in there, it's like 30 people around this table. I'm like this little boy coming in, and like everyone's in suits. And like you're quite involved in that role, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. Like I know someone from P9. He what he says is like, if you were to get a razor right now and you were to run it across my wrist, it would bleed the BNI red. That's how much he's into it. Like, and I'm not quite there yet, but I'm very, very passionate about BNI. It's like I kind of alluded to it before, as far as my networking and the referral marketing. Like it is, as I said, like the foundation of my business, and very grateful for the people I've met through BNI. And but then like that I guess that additional value, which I didn't go into it with this intention, but it's kind of just I suppose a bonus feature, is that ability to present to all sorts of different people with like regularly and consistently. And the group I'm a part of, I run the meeting, so it means I get even more exposure than other people to be able to practice that skill of presenting in front of people, and thinking on your feet, and doing it in a way that's wouldn't say I guess partly entertaining. Like at the end of the day, you've got to make sure it's an enjoyable experience for people coming along.
So almost like acting like your own play. you're going in there, you've got to say the right things, and you got to present yourself well, and that's awesome. That's super cool. That like you're just an absolute unit, to be honest. You're doing a lot of stuff. Like
not
mate.
too much.
I don't think people realize like competing is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, especially like 5-6 weeks out, things just get painful. And the fact you're running a business, you're running like BNI is almost a type of second business you're doing, because you're managing referrals. Are you doing like signups and things like that? Like you're organizing people who are speaking. Like that's a lot.
No, I mean, like there's a group there. Like we've got a great team that supports us. So like my input is I guess like restricted to, I guess, just running the meetings. And don't get me wrong, I do everything I can to make that go well, but there's other people who have their little inputs as well. So I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, I never really saw it that way, but the
Take the
competing angle
compliment.
is, yeah. Well, okay, well, I will, but yeah, as far as the competing goes, yeah, definitely coming into the weeks leading up to it, like I'm less than 2 months out, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
starting
right.
to
So you're
get,
what? Yeah, like 7-8 weeks out or 6
yeah.
weeks.
So as of yesterday, it's exactly 8 weeks. So 23rd of April is when I compete.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's starting to get to that
And
finish line.
yeah, and that's through ICN, right?
Yeah, ICN.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's so good, mate.
So for any of your audience, you're welcome to come see me ICN. It'll be at the Perth Convention Centre, 23rd of April.
Awesome. Maybe we could touch base on your coach as well. Like, how's that experience
Oh,
been?
mate, it's been amazing, and I've got no trouble in giving a big shout out to Will Collins. He's from the Physique Code.
Yeah, I've heard
I mean,
amazing
everyone.
things about it too. Huh? So
Yeah. I mean, the whole like everyone in the Physique Code is amazing, but Will especially. I mean, he's been there from day dot, and he competes himself. He's
yeah,
still competing to this day, but yeah, just been massively supportive of everything and all the ups and downs along the way, and
yeah.
leading me through. So I'm grateful to have had him as my trainer.
That's awesome, mate. And yeah, like you're looking great. You're coming in now. How much have you? I know you're not meant to really have a goal weight, but what have you guys planned on anything like that? Or is it mainly what you're looking like in the mirror?
It's more so how I'm looking, and more the skin folds than anything.
Yeah.
I did ask like quite early. I'm like, what would you expect as like based on my physique, like what would you expect would be like I guess my competition weight, and Will said you'd be looking at something like 67, 68 kilos.
Yeah.
So I'm not far off. So like I just had my check-in just before, it was just this morning, in fact. So I was weighing in at 69
Far out.
kilos.
You're very close, eh?
So I'm close. So, I mean, obviously that the weight fluctuates. Like I was like just a week ago 2 kilos heavier. So it always depends on like your water retention.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
about all this anyway.
You know what? Like, while we're here, that's actually another thing to bring back the whole consistency thing. Like competing in the few weeks up towards you start getting really lean, you don't actually physically see any changes for like weeks. Well, like maybe I did it wrong, but for myself,
that's what
like
I've been told.
Yeah, like you're working real hard, and especially if you're coming off of like somewhat of an off season, you get to this point where you don't see definition, you're smaller, and you're just busting your ass in the gym, and you almost that's the mental aspect that just almost defeats you, because you're just like, what's happening? Like, I'm putting this work in, like I've got a deadline, like am I going to make it? And then you start stressing, and then you see some guys on Instagram and you're like, man, they're massive. But it's literally like a consistency thing, isn't it? Like, because I guarantee, like I reckon 5th week you'll get into, and you'll see like, you're like, oh, finally dropped. Like you just mentioned, you dropped 2 kilos. Like there was a time in my prep where it was like 3 weeks I didn't drop any weight. And then like the next check-in, it was like the same as you. It was like 1.2 kilos, 2 kilos. And then the next week was another kilo. And I was like, what's happened? I didn't do anything different. You just got to trust the process, eh?
Totally. Yeah. Like you got to trust the process. And I'm so glad that like Will, he reiterated it today, but a couple of weeks back he'd mentioned like, you're going to look terrible leading up to the competition, but the worse you look, the better you're going to look on stage. And so as soon as he told me that, I'm like, okay, that's good, because I look freaking horrible right now. So
that's a good reframe, though. Like he could, in your mind, he's like, he just said that, like, that's awesome. That's good. He sounds like a good coach. That's what you need. It's as much as it's down to yourself, at the end of the day, it is down to you. But having that that actual coach, helping you, supporting you, keeping you accountable, that's actually a really important lesson as well. Why you need mentors in your life, not just in like, obviously you're doing a bodybuilding comp, but for everyone out there as well, you've maybe heard from other people, like get a mentor, get things like this. Is why it's important, because you have got this journey that you're walking along. You can't really do it alone. It's about, you got to have like the right people around you. You got to have someone that you can, like, is this, like, what do you think, am I doing this right? And they're not going to tell you what to do, but they can kind of reframe things for you and keep your mindset focused. And I think, like, that's why you've got your mentor Moses. Shout out to Moses, my mentor as well.
Oh, yeah.
You've got Will. It's super important, other business mentors to keep you accountable to not only your greatness, but the other people you'll be impacting if you stay consistent with that and true to yourself. So yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I think at the very least, like an accountability partner, like is like a minimum, just for like anything that does require that bit of consistency or discipline to it. But then when you're delving into an area of knowledge that is probably might be outside your area of understanding, then yeah, you definitely want to have a mentor that's either done it before or is good at coaching on that particular area. Like, hence why I think it's great to have a mentor in business, and for the bodybuilding, I definitely needed that support.
Yeah. And it's like we talked about, time's the most valuable thing. That when you've got someone that's already done what you're wanting to do, like you mentioned, when you're first starting your business, like you said you spent like way too much time like doing all that stuff. But obviously, in the beginning, income's kind of a thing for you. But I think as people go through, or myself even as well, you go through this growth stage of like, you're getting that momentum. Like, it's super important to, find the experts, like pay them, like, because time's valuable, even though like it's like the cost might be a bit scary. Like, their expertise and the time they will save you is worth it as well. It will really like shoot you there faster, which is really good. Yeah,
absolutely.
I know. I feel pretty good now about the fitness side of things. I suppose, like, when you do when are you training? Are you mainly in the morning, afternoon, or do you have no time?
Oh, mate, it's just when I can fit it in. Like, I wish I could say that I had like a set time each day, but yeah, it just fluctuates depending on like what my calendar looks like. And it's not a great excuse, but like I do want to be, like, in an ideal world, I like to just keep it consistent, like the same time and stuff like that. But yeah, it's usually just when I can. So
I actually think that's important though as well, like not having consistency and like timings. That's almost like comfortable, because it's going to happen, you're certain. But like the fact that you do it at any time, it shows the discipline, because in life there will be so many things, right, that will come up. You might have a plan and then something will come and you have to change it. Being flexible in that's like a massive thing. So like the fact you're doing that, I can't imagine the dividends it's going to pay for you. Like you said, the skills that you build up, you might not see these results. Same with your public speaking with BNI. Like, you didn't really notice it till about 2 years later, and then you're like, oh, I'm actually pretty good. Like, I reckon this would be a similar thing for you, right? Like, just being able to do something because you're going to have to do it at like a specific time, or no time. Like, that's massive.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think a big thing, like, I guess, that I've already have noticed is, I guess, the being comfortable, being able to like forego other areas of life. So there's been countless times where it's like, oh yeah, let's go like eat out or whatever. I'm like, nah, I can't. I just, I'm on a diet. I can't eat that. So too bad. Like, I can come spend time with you, but I'm not going to eat. And it's like, and just got to be okay with that, like, it's,
But that's a massive thing. It doesn't sound like a lot. Like, I know, because I experienced it. Like, and it might even be same if you do like new businesses, or you try and do something that's like out of the norm. Like, you'll have people, like, not just with food, right? Like, have you ever had like weird looks when you're saying all that? Like, do you have to explain yourself? Like,
mate, it's, to be honest, like, most people, it's actually fine. The hardest people, or I should say person, to explain that to is my nonna.
Oh yeah, I know.
yeah. So like,
they get almost offended, right? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, like, it just doesn't, like, just can't compute at all. Like, and so, and this is terrible, but my comp is 1 week after Easter, and like, as you know, Easter, would just normally be like a big feast, that would big spread, everything like that. I'm not going to Easter this year because it's actually it's easier for me to just not go than try and sit through that and say I'm not going to be eating any of this food today.
Would that be 1 week out?
Yeah, exactly. Like literally,
Mate, no
like
way.
1 week out. There's
That
no
would
chance.
be
So like,
impossible.
yeah, exactly right. So and like, it's like because I could be there as long as no one was saying anything. I'd be comfortable like seeing the food. Like it'd be tough, but I could see the food, and I'd be okay like just spending time with my family. But like trying to explain to my nonna that I'm not eating any of this food that she spent hours like preparing. Like, how am I supposed to do that? So I'm just like, no,
You just look
I'm not
into her
going to Easter.
eyes and be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I can't, Nonna.
Yeah, it's that would be the hardest thing for me. So I've said I'm gonna have, and as I'm speaking now, what I'm probably gonna do is maybe the week or even the day after I can have like second Easter just with my nonna. I'm like, we'll have like lasagna or something like that. Yeah,
That's
something
awesome.
nice.
Oh mate,
Yeah.
you'll be looking forward to that. Let me tell you. When you finish, how long you prepped for now?
How, like since I first started?
Yeah,
Like,
well, like since your comp, because I know you did your recomp and that, but like, when did you start for the show?
I suppose like it's hard to say because I've always had like a diet to follow. So I think like I guess the serious part's probably like mid-Jan, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, like early Jan. Yeah, actually, you know what? It would have been just after Christmas.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So like good 12 to, what is it, 15
Yeah.
weeks, right?
Yeah.
But you then were doing your whole recomp phase with Will, like what?
That's
10,
it. Yes.
20 weeks
A
even.
whole year. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I started seeing Will, like just end of 2020.
Yeah, far
And
out,
we've
man.
been
You've been
because
massive.
we're gonna. I keep saying we, but I was gonna compete for season B. So around September is when I was gonna compete, but it was just not. I was just knocked around a bit when we had those lockdowns in the middle of the year, and it threw
There's
me
a
off
lot of
course.
people that had that. Hey.
Yeah, and because like I probably could have gone for it, but Will recommended, and I agree with him. Like because it's my first time, he said it would be hard for you to get like in good shape for that. Like we don't have too much time. We've only got about 8 weeks to do it, and he said I'd rather have like an extra month to be able to prepare.
That's a good coach too. He could have just said, let's do it, and get you up there, but he wants you to do well. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm so glad because like I'm in way better shape than I was in well, when we were having that conversation would have been like July, I guess, like late July. So yeah, things a lot better now.
That's awesome, man. Oh, I feel pretty good about that one there. Then what do you think? Is anything
I'm good,
we
mate.
missed, you think?
No, you're good. You're the host. I'll let you take the reins. If you like,
no, I was just wondering because
get the hell off the call.
See, mate. I feel like I could chat forever. That is the thing, right? Like we could go down a multitude of different things and it would never end. Maybe you're right. Maybe we need a few episodes. We'll talk about philosophy.
I'll be glad to come on another episode if you can squeeze me in the schedule. So
I'm pretty flat out, mate. Already got 20 books. No, definitely don't. But hopefully in the future we will have a lot more people.
Oh, you will, mate. You will.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up, everyone. Thanks so much for coming on, Jeremy. I really appreciate you sharing like great insights for myself and for everyone listening. And it sounds like you're just on an amazing journey, and I look forward to seeing you just succeed in whatever you put your mind to, with a fitness, in business, in your family. It's awesome. I look forward to it, man. But thanks for coming on, and hopefully we did all right here. You enjoyed it, and
thanks for having me on, Corey. I wish you all the best with firstly your podcast. Like I know it's going to grow very well, but also your endeavors in business, fitness, and life as well. And I'm really grateful that I could be the first one to come on.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate that. We'll put some of your links in that as well. So where can people find you on like social media, and what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, sure thing. So if you like, most of my I guess content, so to speak, is channeled through my business. So if you look for Ithaka Media, Ithaka is spelled ITHAKA Media. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. And if you want to find me on LinkedIn, just Jeremy Mullally, you'll be able to find me on there. I think that's really it. And if you want to see my website, it's ithakamediaweb.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, mate. You have a good one, and I appreciate your time. See you, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey.